hello to you both. And if each of you will take a mic, that'll be great. So Adlene oversees the mission area in our annual conference, and Paulette is involved very much in missions. And so you're going to have the opportunity to hear from both of them. So let's start with you, Paulette. Why don't you tell this group what your role is?
Well, actually in the conference I have the role of United Methodist Volunteers in Missions, and it's kind of a reoccurring job for me because I was on conference staff for a while before going as the executive director of the Southeast jurisdiction. And after 6 years in retirement, I've agreed to come back on and work at the annual conference to kind of strengthen that and find some young leadership to take over the position.
That's great. So you have come out of retirement to do
have.
this. That's right. How does that feel?
It feels actually kind of wonderful to be
Great.
back in the trenches and be kind of get my hands and feet dirty again in the mission field. And I also serve as the representative for the Southeast District in Missions. So I enjoy reaching out to the churches and finding out what they're doing locally.
So you've been immersed in volunteers in missions for
Since
a long
1997.
time. 1997. Do the math. How many years is that?
Oh, I'm not even sure I could do it right now in my head.
That's all right. That's all right. A lot of years.
Many years.
That's good.
Many years.
That's good. 26, I think.
Oh.
There you go. So, Adlene, tell us about your work related to missions, particularly in this annual conference. And I know you've had involvement in missions. You had involvement in missions long before you were involved in the North Alabama Conference. But be specific about North Alabama for now, if you will.
Yes, Bishop. I think since I've been in this conference, I've been involved in doing missions. I've been in this conference 2013, so since then I've been doing a lot of work under missions, starting with Imagine No Malaria up to today. I think missions has been part of life-giving to me as I do my work in the North Alabama. Right now, I also chair the missions team. We meet quarterly, mapping on what is it that God is calling us to do in the mission field. Looking at what God is calling us in the North Alabama, because we know in these communities that we are serving, God is already there. So what can we do to partner with God in alleviating suffering of human beings, and also to realize that as we do share Christ every day, the work of evangelism needs to be done body, mind, and soul, not only just to read the gospel or preach the gospel, but to be in action as part of the missions work.
Very good. Very good. So this next question is for both of you, and whichever one of you answers first, that'll be fine. The other one will then have an opportunity as well. How do you connect evangelism, which is what we're talking about this annual conference, with your work in missions?
I think like we have heard from listening to the different communities out there, there is no way we can live the gospel without showing love, without being in the community with people. So our work is when we thank God for AMVIM that provides opportunity for ministries to go out in communities, to build a relationship, to share the gospel. We cannot share the gospel without building relationships. When we do the missions work around the globe, we connect with people, we build a relationship, then we can share the good news of Jesus Christ with the people around us.
Thank you. Yes, Paulette.
And I think it's important to realize that as you're developing those relationships, sometimes the most important thing that you can do is by the actions that you have. I think letting them see that Christian love in action, you may not even have to say a word. There's no need to proselytize, but to understand that sometimes evangelism is just sharing not only your love, but your Christian story with someone else so that they understand and let God do the rest, work in their life. But just knowing that the importance you have of whatever gifts and talents you have to share, and helping people to understand that the value they have to offer that we can learn from as well is so important in that relationship.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yesterday evening in the ordination sermon, I talked about how as clergy, and this would be true for lay leadership as well, one of our roles is to equip and inspire others to offer Christ every day. How do you see that in connection with your role, for instance, at Paulette, with Volunteers in Missions?
I mean, that's really been an important aspect of Volunteers in Missions, because as we provide resources and so can create resources, it's always at the forefront of everything that we do. And our team leader training is vital to help them understand as they're going into the communities, to understand the culture that they're working in, to be sensitive to the people, to find appropriate ways of expressing and sharing God's love with others. And for me, I mean, like so many, I was just a layperson in a local church and never really thought that this would become a call to ministry in my life. And it was that very first mission trip in 1997 with Rhett Thompson, who's our missionary in Panama, who's been there for over 30 years, where God really showed me how important it was to share what he's done in my life with others, whether that be word or in deed. And it really, I think, is very important, as James says, to do both.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Adlene, talk to us about how we as local churches and clergy and laity here in the North Alabama Conference can be helpful to the ministry of missions in general and specifically in North Alabama.
I'm thankful for what the North Alabama ministries are doing in terms of mission. Sometimes we don't hear a lot and celebrate together. So one aspect is for you as ministries, churches, to share with us what is happening around North Alabama so that we all can celebrate, we all can see what God is doing among us. So that piece, if you can help us by sharing what's happening and celebrate together. But also to connect with Paulette, as she said, in terms of mission trips, what can we resource you with? Because we don't know until you tell us what you need from us. We are thankful for Global Ministries, and I think they have their table out there. That has been a wonderful resource for us also as a missions team to do our work, to find resources when we want to go out or when we want to equip our churches to go out and do mission work. So we are looking forward to what you're doing and share with us what can we help you to resource you as you do ministry with us in North Alabama. But also thankful to the work that's already being done. We look at our mission giving last year was wonderful. We were God's hands and feet in alleviating suffering through hurricanes, through the Ukraine refugees, and I think the total mission giving last year for us was $772,572 from North Alabama. God is at work. God is doing wonders, Bishop, here with us in North Alabama. So we'll continue to partner with God in different ways, whether you in your community. You know, we cannot go always out there, Samaria and everywhere else in Judea, but Jerusalem is in ruins. So we need to partner in Jerusalem as we go out in mission work.
Thank you, Adlene. And so I want to make sure everybody heard that. You did not say $772.
No, Bishop.
You said
$72,000.
Give yourselves a hand, North Alabama Conference.
And our special offering last year for Ukraine was $74,840, just for annual conference last year. And in December, in our special code conference, was $13,000 in mission giving. So we are doing wonderful, North Alabama. We need to pat ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So part of the work that we're doing here in North Alabama is a continued, ongoing initiative related to dismantling racism. How do you see, Paulette, your organization being partners and helping us in that task, which we will continue to work on for as long as there's racism?
Absolutely. And even though it may not be a direct mandate for United Methodist Volunteers and Missions, just the places that we're called to, the communities that we serve in, all over the world, I think if a local church and our leadership acknowledges and tries to be as inclusive as possible. I can remember being in Zimbabwe with a team out of Alabama, West Florida, and we were at this large meeting, and there all the gentlemen were sitting up on the stage and the women had gathered around on the ground. And not even really at the time realizing what I was doing, I just went and sat down with the women. It was just amazing how all of a sudden I was included in that group. And I think sometimes if we just step out of our comfort zone and put ourselves in someone else's shoes or place and try to understand. I was sharing about Church of the Reconciled. I love their new program where you're seeing on Instagram the names and faces and a story about the people they're working with. And if we can get beyond just what we may see on the outside appearance and just acknowledge that we all have dignity and value as human beings, I think then we will get beyond the point of just looking as people of an otherism. And I think that will really help us with regard to racism.
Yes.
Of all kinds.
Right. Thank you. So, what is the biggest challenge that you face in Volunteers and Missions?
Well, that, of course, kind of fluctuate. Because our volunteers are responsible for paying all their own expenses, that can be challenging at times. I think sometimes just the attitude or the ideology that there's so much to do here, why would we go there? And Acts 1:8 calls us to be, as you mentioned earlier, in all those places, not only Jerusalem, which is our home, Judea, which I'll always look at as the annual conference, Samaria, those difficult places that we have to go to. It may be disaster, it may be prison ministry, but then to the ends of the world. And I feel like that wherever you're called, that's where you should be. And you may be called from your church to go to Upper Sand Mountain Parish and serve, or to Urban Ministries and serve, or to the hub at Trinity and Homewood to help serve with their refugee ministries and other programs that they have there, like Food Share. Or you may be called to go to Zambia to learn what the Riddles are doing. And if you saw the video this morning, there's so many opportunities, and Ashley serving as the Volunteer Missions Coordinator, and what Joe is doing in church development. We have a real opportunity to help support their ministries there, whether it's physically going over to be a part of building a church, or whether it's through financial support to help them with a covenant partnership. There's so many ways. And so if you're interested, you can come talk to me about that, or talk to financially supporting them through the advance of the General Board of Global Ministries. But I think it's just taking that first step, to realize that we are all called to God's ministry, whether that's in our own community or across the world.
Absolutely. And Joe and Ashley specifically invited us today, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
On that video. So we have
come
an
see
invitation.
me so I can sign you up.
Okay. So one last question, and you all been great. The question is this: what is your greatest hope for your organization? In 30 seconds.
Everybody will be excited to be in missions so that we can tell the story of Jesus Christ, sending us into the community to do the work that God is calling us to do.
That's great. Paulette?
Well, I'm not sure I can add anything to that, but that's just acknowledging and realizing that God has called us to be in ministry with Him wherever we are, using the gifts and talents that He's given us.
Great. Thank you both for this conversation. And how did you like that report? Okay, thank you. That was great.